Well, if you do not know who I am or what I do, I am Jaden. And sorry. I am Jaden. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I now live in Greenville for a lot of years now. I am a professional film and TV makeup artist, and I've been working in the film industry in Greenville for 4 years. So today, we will be demonstrating a prosthetic application. So who knows what a prosthetic is for film and TV? Or have seen it, or have heard of it, worked with it? Does anyone know? A few hands. Okay. Well, a prosthetic application is a modified appliance that is used on the talent as an actor, actress's face, or any part of their body. It can also be considered in the category of like wig appliances, beards, fake eyebrows, things like that, witch noses. You see a lot of these at Halloween stores, like the lesser quality ones. But working in the professional side of the industry, you will see the more higher quality ones. So things that you see in like Halloween movie or The Godfather, you know, a lot of things like that. So even if it's just a regular person, they might have some type of appliance. Especially if their talent is mimicking a historical character, some type of biography, documentary, thank you, Rhodes, and such like that. So that's what I do. My mom kind of did it. She went to school in Los Angeles to pursue it, but she didn't pursue it fully. She went to Joe Blasco's makeup school under Paramount Studios. And so I kind of lived vicariously through her, and I took after that. And she handed me down her two kits. One was theater, and one was on-camera ready cosmetics. So I am licensed and board certified to do both. So that's kind of how I started. And this is where we are now, and I'm still learning, growing every day, but it has been an amazing journey for me. So for the prosthetic, me and Rhodes were kind of figuring out what we wanted to really show as far as like level, because sometimes, especially when it comes to budget or the area we work, or if we have studios locally, we cannot always hire a makeup artist professionally. And so I think it's really important that some people on set, it be crew or the talent themselves, have an idea and knowledge of what we should be doing. Even if it's just blotting oil on a talent, moving a flyaway out the hair, whatever the level is, I think it's always important to advocate some kind of idea so everyone can do it themselves, like I said, if you cannot afford a makeup artist. So I guess we will go ahead and start. So I'll talk about my kit. This is, I would say this is my essentials of what I bring every day on set, other than equipment such as like the chair, the lighting, things like that. But we have on-camera ready cosmetics. So this is going to be the specific kit that holds all the prep, all of the color complexions of any talent, of any facial features, things like that. This is the most important, so this is what I bring to anything. So even if someone said, I'm gonna hire you, but I'm not gonna tell you what you're gonna do, this is the kit I will bring that will like really push me through it. Then for this second kit, this is my special makeup effects kit. So same thing like that, but special makeup effects. So this is gonna be all my adhesives, preps, for all my prosthetic applications and things I need to do with color theory, and then as well as like blood, bonds, and things like that. So I have, if you're not new to Film Bar, I've done a podcast with Rhodes, and I've done another class on the art department. So I have spoken about color theory. That's one of the things I like specifically specialize in. And I try to explain and do my best with color theory, because that's super important when it comes to doing anything on anyone, such like that. But let's introduce our model today really quick. This is my sister, Gigi. She is my model today, my talent today. So the way that I will do this systematically is how I would on any set. So just because we're Class A, it will not change how I would do this on or off set. So first and foremost, usually in pre-production really quick, as the makeup artist, whether I am head of a department, I'm training or assisting a makeup artist or hair artist, specifically makeup, I will have my own makeup talent form. So this is a makeup department talent form. This is a survey that I send to my talents, and this is basically going to run down everything that I need to know when it comes to skin, when it comes to hair, mostly facial hair, really than like any body hair or head-on hair. And this is very important because allergies and client safety is a huge number one that we should consider of. So I had my client talent today fill one out. So I will be going off of this, but this is basically telling me the allergies that they have. So example, she has latex allergies. So throughout the whole thing, that is something I have to remember and keep up, that I do not cross-contaminate anything in my kit, even if it's from one glove to one brush, everything is accounted for. She has sensitivity to fragrances, so I have to make sure that my prep, especially because we find most of our fragrances in our prep, such as our lotions or sunscreens, that I have to make sure that it doesn't bother her. She has eczema, grade 1 acne, and sensitive skin. So that obviously tells me that I have to pay extra attention to not only what I'm using, but how her skin reacts throughout every step I do, which is, can kind of be hard if you are on the clock, if you're on set and, you are given a certain time and things like that. So it's definitely multitasking, is that what it is? But yeah, but the more you do it, the more you just get used to it. But so first, when it comes to me, I had already washed my hands. I am going to go ahead and prep myself at least and put gloves on and make sure I'm sanitized. Sometimes I'll work with an apron, sometimes I don't. But if you're doing messy stuff, I recommend it. So first thing I'm gonna do, so she already has her hair up and everything, she's good. Like I said, I already went down with her talent form and such. So she has lash extensions on, which is something you not really see in the film industry because we usually ask them not to come with anything. But this would be a good opportunity to kind of look and be aware. Do they have contacts in? Do they have braces? Do they have facial piercings? Have they had any previous, cosmetic works and things like that? All that will remain confidential between you and the talent, and of course permission with the producer and things like that. But so why is that important? Like, why do I need to know if she has contacts or braces or any like recent surgeries or something like that? Because of the pressure and application that you do as the artist. So if she has contacts and I'm, just going in, I might just mess her contacts up, whatever. Braces, that also, I have ran to a situation where someone just got like their braces tightened or something, and it was really swollen for them, but they had to come in. So you don't really hear that a lot, but I always just try to advocate that. So that the comfortableness of the client is there, I feel comfortable, etc. So first I'm going to prep her skin. And I will show you the prosthetic I'm using today. It is going to be a versatile laceration. So this could be a bullet hole wound, this could be a cigarette burn, this could be something like an infection or a cyst or a boil that bursted, or you can even add stuff like maggots where it comes out of it. So any practical gag or anything like that. But we'll be using this today. I did bring this one as well, just a simple universal laceration. I always find I do this a lot, so I wanted to do something a little bit more like different. But if you guys have any questions about this after class, I can definitely answer them for you.
Where did you get stuff like that?
Okay, that's a great question. So this is Tinsley Transfers. This is by Tinsley Studios. That's the company of this brand that distributes these prosthetics. This is a transfer, a water transfer. So the way you apply it is with water, like a tattoo. And it already has these built-in adhesives. It's latex-free. It's like any harmful plant-based. It's really good. This is good for on the go. If you didn't have time to understand someone's skin, this is a lot more safer than if you were to use a latex prosthetic. foam latex or a silicone piece. I tend to use silicone encapsulated pieces. That's just like the higher quality stuff, like what you see, like the Grinch or, you know, stuff like that. But knowing that she had a little bit more sensitivities, the removal of this is also very important. So it's not always about application, it's about the removal that can also put their skin in danger. But you can get this online. We can add links or whatever when we need to, when we upload, and things like that. And this can be also found at a Halloween store. So this is a lot more accessible. I would say this is definitely like beginner friendly if you're interested, or if you are your own director, your own producer. Like I said, you know, don't want to hire a makeup artist, but you want to incorporate something really quick. This is very easy. I think anyone can do this if they're interested. So that is why we're going to be using this today. So I'm going to take a clarifying solution, this little bottle, spray it away from client. And since the camera is over here, we're going to go to the right side of her face and just cleanse the area of the idea of the placement of the prosthetic. And then also when we measure out the placement of the piece, we can see if we need more room to her neck or around her nose or such. I would always recommend bracing the talent. Well, she's my sister, so you know, she gonna let me do whatever. But if you don't know someone, it's very important to, with your professionalism, to just brace. Brace is touching them, letting them know you're coming in, etc. And I've learned this when I was in esthetician major as well. So it's something I learned in school. Toss everything that is disposable. So now I can go straight into the prosthetic because I'm not using any adhesives today or any silicone appliances. So I already cut it out, just easy as that. You take it out. And for this, I will remove my gloves because it is very sticky and I could ruin the edges to it if I use gloves. So you remove the film that comes with it. And so the brand will always be towards you, and you place it just like that, like a tattoo. So I'm going to place it. And just pat down. Don't be afraid to, it's not going to squish anything because it's made to be like this. Go around all the edges. Even if you're planning to use one, they all can be saved. Just cut out the one you want to use, and they'll be ready for transfer. So just say like that. And so this point, I would try to have an idea of how many I want to use, where I want to put these, stuff like that. So if, you know, I would recommend to cut these out individually so you have more control. Some people will just go ahead and put the whole thing on there. But since I would like more control, I'm going to cut these out. So take a Sharpie, put it to the light where you could see the prosthetic, and draw out 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I could cut these out, just like a tattoo. Then I get my scissors. So for the edges, you want to cut out, I would say, right where you meet the edge, but not onto the thickest part of the appliance, because that's what's going to be blended out into the skin. And our edges are very important because that's going to differ from the real skin to the prosthetic. So you want to make sure you have enough room, but you don't need to, you know, cut out this whole white part, you know, just, I would say, a couple, I don't know, measurements, millimeters? Millimeters. Good job. So yeah, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut down the middle. So I think I will use this side, and I'm gonna put this to the side. This could still be kept and used another day or so, but always best to use it as soon as possible. I'm gonna cut this one in half. Okay, so they are ready to be transferred. So because they go on with water, just like a tattoo, I have a cup of water near me. And I would have a spray bottle because it's just easier, but we're going to take a couple paper towels and make like a sponge. Okay. So we'll take this first one. And they're sticky. So you don't have to hold it and not walk away. You can stick it on there and then walk away and do what you need to do, which is a really convenient part for an artist and such. You throw this clear plastic away. And I'm gonna measure. So just because I'm looking for flatter parts of her face. It's okay if she has some dimension, but I'm just trying to think about my edges and everything like that. So I know I'm gonna have to trim, but I'm also basing like what direction I want it to look. So I'm gonna have to trim this more. And this is when you could start trimming actual circle. Okay, so it looks like that. Brace, kind of push it in. Okay, so I get my water next. I'm sorry, it's just so quiet. Okay, not fully drenched, bit saturated. And I'm going to press against it, brace. And because it's such a small piece, and I cut it down so much, that I won't really need to really fully saturate it. And it will actually let you know that it's done because you'll see the white part slide off. It will become kind of slimy, and it will just slide right off. But I would say definitely take your time with this because if you rush it, it will show in your application.
So would you apply any other makeup before putting this on, or would this be your first step?
This will be your first step. If you apply, here, let me show you. Let's just say I apply foundation before I put this on. I'm putting on an adhesive, a pre-made adhesive appliance onto a formula of a foundation that could be greasy, that could be water-based, that could be oil-based, silicone-based, and that will counteract the adhesive bond of the piece. So the longevity and wear of my piece is no longer as valuable. So it's always good to start with dry skin. I actually recommend wiping the skin down with like 70% alcohol or some type of skin prep or astringent, so it just dries off any oil that the natural oils of the skin could try to like break apart the bond that it has. And then also it will make harder application just because of that happening. So I always recommend, dry, clean canvas first before putting anything on. And then once your piece is set, that is when we go in and we color correct and we paint it and things like that to blend out with the talent skin. So as you see, I have a little edge right there that's letting me know that it's pretty much ready, but I'm still going to push against it. I'm gonna let the paper in between the appliance and the paper towel push it for me. If I use my fingers, it might be too sticky and I might start ripping off edges. So try to use this as like a barrier to help you. But it's pretty much just like that. And so I want to take more of a wet edge of my paper towel and use a little bit more water to now blend out the edges around. Because the water softens the edges, which makes it still like sticky and I guess, what's the word, malleable? Like it's still able to mold and stuff when it's wet. Once it dries, it's going to stay like that. So while it's wet, take all this time and take advantage of how you want your edges and such and such. But like I said, such a small piece is pretty much adhering itself. So, do we have any questions?
Is there a way to save it, like if something goes wrong, like mid-application?
That is a great question, because any prosthetic, I understand that. Usually foam latex pieces we could reuse. Foam latex prosthetics are the one that you see in haunts, like Mad World attractions, the ones that are reusable. Those could withstand sweat, facial expressions, like they move with the talent wherever they're placed. However, transfers like this is a one-time use because they are water activated. So when it comes off the skin, they will dry up. And it won't be, and the bond will kind of curl the edges when it's getting ripped off. And especially with the removal, it's just with the removal, with the mixture of the oils taking off the prosthetic and whatever tool you're using to peel it away from the skin, it's kind of hard to save that edge. But if you want an appliance that you want to save for budget costs or you need the same continuity for a film, I would recommend bulk purchasing of silicone appliances or foam latex. Unless you could just repurchase transfers. So now, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was a zombie once, and they had a prosthetic,
Uh-huh.
but they put Elmer's glue on my face. Is that typical?
They put Elmer's glue on your face?
Yeah.
Like to adhere a piece or to mimic like textured skin? Interesting. I could understand that, but I have never heard of that. So I've heard of Elmer's glue stick being used to the purple glue stick to block out brows, like in drag performances and in theater performances, but not Elmer's. Was it the glue stick or the white? Oh, interesting. No, because I would think that the piece would be too heavy because it's not meant for skin. That's another thing is, yes, we see all these hacks on TikTok, and I've done a lot of old school ways of applying things and removing things with like DIY stuff, but if it says it's not for skin, do not put it on skin, especially someone else's skin. So it's really, really important, but I'm glad you survived that. Yeah.
So how much time would you normally need on set to prep the actor, and do you work around the scheduling needs for the production, or do you recommend like, hey, I need an hour to do this, and they work with your schedule, or how's that work?
So during pre-production, for me at least, and I think any general makeup department, it's us working around the production rather than them working on us. But it really depends on what's happening and if it's the first day, if we're 4 days in, like have we got it down, stuff like that. And it also depends what we are doing and if I'm given a certain amount of people, like a responsibility. So I would say that's like depending on how big the responsibility of the makeup artist is. But traditionally, I have experienced that I'm given a call sheet. So we know about call sheets, we know about shot lists, but I usually make or try to get in a meeting with the producer or such to make a hair and makeup call sheet. So that is a separate call sheet from the one crew is given and cast is given. And that will be more tailored to me as far as what I need to know. And you usually share that with wardrobe or even prop or like set dressing, like anything that's kind of background work, like the preparing before we take our shot or they start blocking, doing things like that. But for me personally, I would be transparent and say time has always set me back. And it's something that I'm definitely working on. But I find that if I need to get it done in like 6 seconds, I will get it done in 6 seconds. So if someone says, how much time do you need? I will say, well, how much time do you want, like how much time do you want me to be done with them? What time do you need them in this? If they say 45 seconds, they will get them in 44 seconds. So it's just part of the professionalism. But that's when you break out the Elmer's glue stick, when you start panicking, things like that. But that's a really good question because there's so many, things that could give reason for that or branch off. But if I had it my way, I would say that I would need at least 30 minutes to, kind of build the recipient's skin and understand and prep. And then 30 minutes to, let's just say, if I'm applying a prosthetic, I need the 30 minutes of that. And then I always go by 30 intervals. It's easier to say that than instead of giving someone the word of an hour or something like that. So, I just try to make sure what I say is realistic to what the producer or director is asking of me. But that is a good question. So now we are going to set it. So I'm going to get any translucent setting powder. Because she has fair skin, I'm just going to do a basic translucent powder. But if she did not have fair skin, I would always try to get a translucent powder that is closest. Not the exact shade, but it is at least a little lighter. It's easier to darken something light than it is to lighten something dark. The whole saying of it's easier to take away, etc. So always try to go in light, then dark first. So I'm going to take my powder and just a small fluffy brush. And you only need a little bit. Very, very small. If your piece is more bigger, you would need more, but I'm just setting any of the stickiness that may be on it, any wetness of the water and application. And there we go. Just like that.
But setting powder is good for lots of things, right?
Yes. Setting powder is tried and true. That for creases, blotting your talent, oil. I've heard people do setting powder in the hair, which is a substitution for dry shampoo. Some hair artists will also do that. So setting powder, I would say, whether you're not a makeup, you could be literally crafty. If you could have it on you, that you will be favored. It goes in handy. It also shine, anti-shine. We do not like shine on camera. Post will kill us. So
I added it to my PA kit after we had our.
yeah,
So
yeah.
got it.
Powder. If you can't, anything else, powder. Powder, powder. Powder, powder. So I am going to go ahead and we're going to focus on the complexion now. So I'm just taking my time to figure out her base just off of my eyes. If you have more time, you could swatch and foundation match your client. But since I have worked with her skin before, I kind of have an idea. But I would recommend matching the client if you've never worked with them.
If you're doing multiple applications or appliances, would you do them all at the same time or focus on one and then go to the next?
Like if I had multiple?
If you had like a scar on the other side of the cheek as well. On the other cheek.
Yeah, so I would do I do it based off category. If I have 5 prosthetics, all those 5 got to be on, and it's just time's sake for really just for that purpose. And the longer I take, if I'm focusing too much on this side and she has a piece on that side, I'm neglecting the prep that I've prepped on that side and my prep goes to waste. So I have to just make sure that I'm working 360 with whatever I'm applying. So that's a good question. I would put all of them on before. I'm going to get my palette mixer so I don't use my brush on her. So you can have if you're a beginner, a palette, a plastic palette, like a regular mixer palette, but I have advanced, so I have a wrist now. So what I do is I'm going to depot my product. So I know that I'm not cross-contaminating my kit. My client knows I'm not either. Always depot your products, especially cream products, because bacteria grows and all sorts of pathogens, bacteria, all that stuff will grow in cream, which is much harder to clean than it is to sanitize dry products. So I'm also going to take my foundation mixer. This is, I would say, fair. The reason why I'm mixing is because she has a lot of different tones. She's more fair, but she has a lot of red tones as well, more than I would say golden. Blues and things like that. So she's much lighter than I would say she's warmer. But I'm also keeping in mind of the edges and the color of the prosthetic. But don't let pre-painted prosthetics freak you out that you have to search one up or purchase one that's closest to their skin, because they can always be concealed. But I would recommend getting one that is more transparent so you have more leeway to blend the makeup around it. And then I'm going to take my brush. This is what it looks like. Oh. And then also, I like to get a bit and then kind of like dib-a-dab around, so it's not like I'm carrying so much product in my brush.
Happy little trees.
Happy little trees, no mistakes. And I'm just going in light and buffing it. I always kind of think less is more. The more product I just saturate and cake, the more like the edge will show. And I also have to keep in mind that she has some porous areas and texture around that edge. So like I said, the more I cake onto the pores, the more it's going to show. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my foundation mix, which is about a little lighter than my concealer, so I can kind of customize the prosthetic in the middle. And it's okay to paint over the texture that was already on there, because we're going to bring all those colors and life back to the prosthetic when we start painting it. So don't be afraid. I would say blend the whole thing, just so you know it's blended. And then bring it down moderately so that it blends into the rest of this side. Okay. So now I'm going to go back and reset it. It's kind of like layering after layer, but I'm going to reset this. This will be the last time I intend to set it with powder, then when I seal it at the end with setting spray. But I just want to make sure her base is locked in. I'm going to have you turn towards your right. And then always in between, take a step back, look at your process and everything like that. So it just looks good from far away as well, because we're so used to looking it up close, but we have to keep in mind of cameras and things like that far away. So next, I am going to go in with my painting. Such as so small, there's not really so many steps to it. So I'm going to just go ahead and start painting the middle of it. So this is when we bring out like our bruise wheels. You may see this stuff at like theaters, things like that. or if you are a theater student yourself, you've more than likely worked with one. This is going to bring out all of like the flesh colors. So I would say this step is also important because you have to keep in mind what caused this injury to your talent. You know, we could put anything on it, but what's the storyline? It has to have character. So, like I said, if it was a burn, I'd probably work with more darker colors, but have a more yellow middle undertone so it looks more fresher and things like that. So this, you know, I always get this question, do I have to look up the real thing to compare it, like the anatomy of things? And I would say, yeah, I would say yes to it because I always just want to make it realistic as possible. So for this, I think I'm leaning towards on I think I want to add some fatty deposits, so I'm probably going to incorporate some yellows and oranges. And then towards the end of the wound, so the edges, I want to let it be a little bit light, but also darken a little bit so it looks more realistic. Because also my blood is also going to be in addition to how things look. So I'm going to take my bruise wheel and just take any small brush, any detail brush, and then get a spatula so we could depot it. And I'll use my glove as a palette. So here, let me show you on the camera. So this is it. And I'm going to start with this yellow. Just start mixing it. Always drag it down, like I said, because I don't want my brush too packed with it. And you can always add more. And then I'm also letting the texture that was built into the piece guide me as to where I want to put the paint. Okay.
You have to be a good conversationalist too.
Yeah, I have. This is rare when I just have like me, but I enjoy my conversating with my talent and getting to them. Lets them take the focus off of makeup, so I can just kind of do my thing. So then after that.
Is there any times where you prefer that they don't talk, like do not move their face?
I would prefer them not to talk if I'm working around their, like if I'm doing lipstick, applying lipstick, let's just say it's not special effects, I'm applying lipstick, things like that. That is really, really important too. Or if I'm trying to blend out and they're just like completely, like my brush goes here and they just go here. It's a lot of dodging, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. But one thing I prefer is them not to chew gum or be on the phone. I am totally okay that they read their script, they go over the lines. That is part of it, and you expect that. So, but if I had it my way, no gum and no talking and things like that. It makes things a lot faster with no distractions. So now, I will take a different brush. I'm going to add some reds now. So I'm going to try to give some life to the flesh piece.
Do you ever have to communicate with post-production on either cleaning up or adding gore or whatever?
I would say so. So I just did like a green visual effects recently with Chad on All That Is Evil. I won't spoil it too much, but there's a lot of things I had to keep in mind when it came to like the composition, things like that with posts. So even though I thought really a lot of blood would have looked great, I had to keep in mind that I couldn't do too much because the more I do, that sits on the placement of the green screen that they have to key out. It would be harder to key out certain blood drops and things like that. So that is a good question, because I do have to keep that in mind. Even though I think it would look good in person, it might not look good in post, and it would be harder for the editor, stuff like that. So,
It did look really good.
but it looked amazing, and I was very proud of myself.
My car to keep things.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Shout out to Tammy. She was a trooper on that.
How early do you like to be brought in on a project, especially if you're collaborating with the director, and especially if the director doesn't know too much about
Right.
makeup or anything like that?
So I would say when I first get an inquiry, even if it's just, hey, I'm interested in your work, read my script or read my pitch deck, I am on top of it before I even hear a budget. Sometimes artists prefer it the other way around. They might ask the numerical side of it first, but I would like to know how far the production is in their like whole thing, because some people only reach out because they want an idea of what they would need versus, hey, I already have my idea, can you make it happen? So I would say pretty early, especially when it comes to scripts. So I'll be part of the table reads and things like that. It's not really necessary, but it's easier because I'm able to learn those who are going to need makeup and things like that while we're during the table read. But things are always subject to change, so I always have to keep that in mind. But I would say really, really early. The earliest you can bring me on is when I need to be brought on.
Well, it's also, because you mentioned working with lighting, wardrobe,
Yeah.
and set design, all this stuff. Making sure everything matches if you don't need to do all
Right.
the work because it's a dark scene.
Right. That's another thing is working with your other departments such as lighting and specifically crew, lighting, camera, because if, like Rhodes said, if there is a dark scene or it's something that they're going to just completely CGI, I would hate to do all that work and then it just be completely shadowed in post or something like that. So just making sure like, hey, is this work not only going to be seen, but is it useful to the character and to the screen time, stuff like that. So, but a lot of communication, even in departments that I don't think is relevant to mine, there's a lot of like 360 communication on production. So I'm using this red to just kind of bring back to life some of those textures. And it's okay if some of that yellow gets covered. I kind of like it that way. So, color theory comes in and you're thinking, well, why did you put yellow and now you're adding red? Wouldn't that make it orange? So that is a really good question. And I have to think about, again, what happened and things like that. It's not always red, cuts are not always red. They can be green, they could have discharge, they could have pus, things like that. So it really depends on the scenario and then the person. I've noticed that cuts look a lot different on those who have, conditions like blood thinning medication, things like that. So I try to be as realistic as possible. It's not always accounted for, but that's something that I would recommend as an artist. So now that I'm satisfied with the way that looks, I'm going to go in with a darker. So like I said, the lighter colors as far as the bloods and stuff like that, that's going to be my base. I'm going to go in with the dark, and I'm going to let that be where I really have fun with it, let it have dimension and things like that. So I'm going to take some red, I'm going to take some brown, and then I'm going to add some blue. And I'm going to mix this and kind of customize my own color. Oh, sorry, y'all. Let's see. I cannot see. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Hold it in front of her face.
There you go. So, like I said, I got red, blue and brown. So this is good because it's not just like one color that's just like on there and just kind of scary. And this technique also is great because this also could be versatile and be used as a like, you know, a rouge, a lipstick, and things like that. So going back with my detail brush, I'm going to go back into the crevices and darken up that stuff. Then I use my finger to kind of have a little bit more control. Everyone is different. Some people work solely, you know, on brushes. Some people rely on spatulas. Some people kind of mix in both. I do kind of both, just depends. I'm kind of sporadically, light pressure, letting my brush kind of guide me. So I'm adding just kind of more texture, so it's not just soulfully in the middle. I want to let it blend out and let it just kind of spackle out. Kind of go over here. Okay.
Does that help at all? Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah? Very good. Okay. So I want to stop real quick and just show that you can stop here. This is kind of just like a base, pretty much. It's very light. It's not, you know, crazy. This can definitely be a boil or, you know, something like that. This is, you know, you can add shine, such as Vaseline, if you want to make it look wet. I always say hydrate your prosthetic, metaphorically, using pus, discharge, like the, you know, the gag and stuff like that, because it just makes it all look more realistic instead of just dry and just kind of just sitting on the face. So, but for the sake of finishing, I am going to add a little bit more darker. So this is kind of where you would stop, but I'm going to act like I'm, you know, kind of fast forwarding the effect of it. So I'm gonna maybe make it a little bit more rotten, make it a little more dark, and then add blood and everything as such. So I take more of a dark purple. Make it more dark. Maybe it's been sitting for a while, oxidizing, and such. Blend it out with my finger. Kind of go around it. And then at this point, to really blend things out together, you can add some bruising around the eyes, just more in the area, so it looks more swollen, and things around it externally where it affected, and things like that. Preferably, I do not use these transfers anymore since I have kind of leveled up in like my application. So the only flaw about transfers is that they do not blend like a silicone piece. So in a encapsulated silicone, they're broken down, the compounds in the piece and material are broken down with acetone, which this can't be done because it's a water-based transfer. So the only flaw with it is that the edges are a lot more thicker, so they are a lot more noticeable than a silicone piece would be. But this is just still part of the demonstration to show you that it can be done and you can work with what you have. So the next thing I want to start doing is the blood. Yeah, go ahead.
So for that, for the edge, so that you can cover that? Is there like ways you can put makeup like around the edges to sort of blend it?
Yeah, you can. So I would recommend, if it was such a bother, I would say using a thicker concealer. Like I said, I try to stay away because it would probably lift it up or make it more visible than really conceal it. You can also cut the edges a lot more closer to the piece. So I usually do that, but the reason why I left it was to show you how it looks though, because some people, depending on the piece itself and how it's created, some edges are left kind of a little bit more farther away than closer. I would say it really depends on the artist. But I would say that's the only flaw that I personally have with like transfers, things like that. But also adding blood and, you know, lighting, like I said, could also help boost it, minimize the edges, things like that. So I think it just depends on the process, but I would say that. Blood also helps. Blood also helps. But for me, I think less is more. And sometimes you can have such a good piece and it be covered by blood. And it takes away from, you know, the actual, the detail, the orientation of it. So instead of using a water-based or a syrup-based blood, I'm going to use a drying alcohol blood. So this over here, these are alcohol bloods. So this is a lot more lighter. It's a lot more, you can control a lot more. When you use a water-based or a syrup blood, like a coagulated looking blood, it's just going to sit and kind of seep its way into the thing, which covers the whole thing. And then if you have a water-based blood, it's just going to run down. But this, I feel like I have a lot more control, and it just dries with it. So I'm going to take, I have different ones. I have a darker one and a lighter one. So we'll do a lighter one first, just to see what that looks like. And I will take a disposable swatch. I will do.
To your question earlier, though, motion blur of the camera is going to help a lot with that. If they're letting you move and shit, it'll help you.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Yeah.
Like when it was just a bit out of focus.
Yeah.
That's how I would shoot it. I would do it just a little out of focus. It was looking.
Yeah, also like I said earlier, the expressions and the mobility can also help. But usually silicone pieces are made for stuff like that. You know, you've probably seen pieces and props that look so good that don't even really need much. Those are pieces I highly favor as a growing artist. But yeah, when you have, you know, a picture in motion, I would say that would kind of take care of the job. So I'm just going to make sure I like the way it looks. It's blended. And also, if I wasn't doing like more of a red wound and things like that, to keep in mind that you bring back texture to the edges of the appliance. So if you did it near a freckle and you covered it, make sure you artificially put back on the freckle so it's like as if it's not technically an appliance. So it just blends in more. But I'm going to take the blood now. I'm going to have you tilt to your left. So I'm going to let the lighter part of the blood sit around the edge just like how I did with the light paints. So kind of using the same technique that I had with the painting, I'm going to do it with the blood. Then I'm going to go and take the darker version of the blood and fill in the wound with that. And I personally would leave it like this. This would be the time that you want to add blood splatter, or you can use textured tools if you want to do a certain direction and happen, things like that. So the way the blood splatter is also really important, but I'm going to leave it here just so that you can see it still, because I don't want to cover it all in blood, because then I kind of cover my work. But this right now would pretty much be the end of it as far as paints and stuff. So I'm going to set it though. I'm going to set it with a seal. You might want to watch out. So it's just like setting spray. I'm going to let my client know. 1, 2, 3. And then fan it. I always keep a portable fan, but of course I forgot it. But I just want to make sure it's dry. And a way to see if a matte sealer is dry is when you start touching it, it's a little bit tacky. But if it's still wet, it's not dry. And then if I wanted to add more really quick, if I want to add like a pus or a discharge, I always keep like primary colors with me so I can make my own like texturized stuff that I could fill in the wound with. So I'm going to take this yellow, take a separate brush. Let's see, we'll do this brush. Just add a little bit. And it will mix with the blood, but it will give it some consistency, so I don't mind that. So this can kind of lighten it and add more of a discharge look, or, you know, like a scrape that's healing that kind of has all these different colors and stuff like that. But essentially, this is pretty much that. And like I said, I would set it, and if you wanted to do more, I would maybe in this situation add some more bruising and bring up more of the swelling into around the eye area, maybe around the ears. I feel like a lot of people forget, you know, we only put makeup on the face, but our ears and our neck have a lot to do with it too. So I would probably bring it all the way over here as well. But yeah, I would say that was pretty much it. As far as, you know, the painting, and then it was such a small piece, the prosthetic itself, when you seal it. So yeah, that is the prosthetic on her. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you quickly just talk through the removal process?
Yes. So for the removal, I would remove first the makeup itself, like all the paints, all the creams, the blood. And once I have that, it's basically going to be like a more colored, dirtier version of the appliance in the first place. And so it went on with water, and technically it can be taken off with soap and water as well. But, you know, because it's on someone else's skin, that might be more of an abrasive removal, and I might have to try much harder. But so I have these specific formulated removers for universal appliances, and I would just try to find an edge and then spray a removal into like a little cup, use a separate like artist brush and dip it, or like a chip brush or something like that, and just kind of like peel away and let the remover like sit under so it starts to like de-tack the adhesive. You remove the appliance and then you follow your regular skincare routine after that.
Goo Gone.
Huh?
Goo Gone.
And then Goo Gone, yeah, so use Goo Gone. Yeah. Yes.
So if you were, that's like a boil or something, but if you were to make that a gunshot wound, how would you do it different? What would you do to make it look more like a gunshot?
I would probably cut the edges a little bit more closer. I would fill it in completely dark and like, I would say like a blue, black, not just straight up black itself, but like blues and purples. So it almost looks like there's actual like depth, like it's gonna, like there's another exit wound on the other side. And I would probably use an additional silicone compound, so like scar wax or liquid latex to kind of add more texture. But that's if it's an entrance or an exit. So if it's an exit, the edges are going to be more abrupt, like exiting that way. If it's an entrance, they will be more in. So I think the edges on this would be great for that. If it was an exit, I would add more texture. So this is a silicone compound. It's called 3rd Degree Burn. And it's just part A, part B, and you can mix it on set. You can use it's kind of like scar wax, but this is a little bit like more better and more malleable, but you let it cure as you mix it. And then once it's ready to be applied, you basically, it's like adding on to the material, which I definitely recommend than I guess using scar wax itself, because it's a whole different compound material that might not sit well on this type of piece. But that's what I would do, is I would just kind of add on to make it look like it was additional skin, like skin flaps and fatty tissue deposits and things like that.